Recording. Okay, we're going live now. Hello, everyone. Thank you ever so much for coming back to yet another Old Guard versus New Blood webinar series, sponsored by Majestic. Thank you ever so much to Majestic for sponsoring these. They just wouldn't get on if I didn't have somebody giving me a kick to try and put these things up. I'm really pleased with the crowd we've got today. We've got 4 people here. Well, myself and Shari's decided to go incognito. So, Shari, why don't you introduce yourself first to the crew?
Hello, everybody. I prefer to be called Classic Hat instead of Old Hat, if you don't mind.
I knew that I'd get in trouble with that one.
My name's Shari Thurow. I have been in the SEO world since 1995, believe it or not. And I specialize in search engine friendly design and architecture. And
you've written 2 books as well, haven't you?
Yes, I have. And I was also included in Eric Ward's and Garrett French's most recent book on link building. So that was pretty cool.
Loads of stuff in there. So Shari, I've known Shari for a long time, and in fact, I was even mentioned in one of your books in the introduction after something involving a swimming pool in Iceland. But that's a story for another day, or buy the book. But anyway, whatever. You know, Shari, 1995. I'm sorry, but you have to be on the old guard side of this argument with this. So anybody that started before the turn of the millennium, we are the old guard, Shari, and so we have to take that, especially since these guys are really young and inexperienced. So, David, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm David Mackenzie-Kong. I've been doing social media marketing for over 8 years.
We know. It's just in the language. The
and I focus on small business. I've worked with major corporate companies as well. And my goal here now is to get people going. Get rolling with it. I focus on health in the health industry as well as the triathlon industry right now, and it was going well for up to a week. Now we're just running, but yeah, that's kind of a little bit of my background.
Yeah, so you're big into triathlons, aren't you?
Yeah, I just got into ultra marathon running as well, and yeah, unfortunately, all the races are canceled this year.
Yeah, that's not so great.
So we're all trying to figure out how we're going to paint at home. Bring out the Jane Fonda again. You're all
going to have to wear virtual cameras or something to do with that.
Totally.
So okay, so we got over 20 years in the industry. We got an ultra marathon runner. Ned, what are you going to come up with here?
Well, yeah, I'm gutted about the marathons being cancelled as well, because we're so close with all of my training. No, jokes aside, I have actually run a marathon. I've certainly not run an ultra marathon, though. They are crazy.
Absolutely.
I know in France, just to go on a complete tangent, where you drink wine while you run around. So
yes,
that sounds like my kind of marathon. Anyway, my name is Ned Poulter. I'm CEO and founder of Polestar Digital. We started out kind of in SEO. That's my background. I've been in the industry for over 10 years now. I very much specialize nowadays in social media and paid social media. That's a large part of what we do, helping people to drive leads and sales through paid social media channels.
Okay, fantastic. And you play the guitar and
I do
Ed Sheeran lookalikes.
Yeah, and I'm not as popular as him.
I'm sure that's not true, Ned. Certainly, so Ned, I've spent many a nice evening in bars in Brighton, mostly with Ned. And David, you're involved in Beanstalk, weren't you, for a while? I think
that's right. I got my Jedi Knight training with Dave Davies back in the day. It was a great time. Good working with the guy.
There you go.
Just a blast.
So there's a huge amount of experience in the group, and I think it's going to be great to do a session on, obviously with the whole event, you know, sponsored by Majestic, you know, this backdrop of links kind of keeps on coming back. But I'm not asking anybody to talk about Majestic. I'm not talking anybody to necessarily talk about links. We're going to sort of talk about social and social engagement. And I've got a bunch of questions from people that signed up, and there are a whole load that signed up. And thank you very much. We got the newsletter out fairly late, but there was, you know, a huge response. So it does seem that everybody's still willing to get on and get into business in these hard times. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to spend the whole, you know, 45 minutes talking about coronavirus, but clearly that has an impact on what we're doing moving forward. So maybe I'll just start out, even though we didn't sort of set the question up. Are there anything special that we should be doing in social now that we shouldn't have been doing 2 weeks ago? Anything that comes out that changes the way in which we move forward now with social? Anyone want to jump in?
I think consistency. I think this gives opportunity to a lot of small businesses to start playing with social media like they've never have before. Like I was saying earlier in our pre-talk, like, you know, instead of, there's like for example, there was a place, a coffee house in Grand Forks that used to just take pictures of their cinnamon buns, stuff like that. But I've been seeing over this last week, they're actually talking into the camera and engaging with their customers. Their customers are seriously interested in that. And so they're starting to talk and engage with their clientele. And I think that's needed more now than ever before, is keep your clients engaged, keep that conversation going. Talk about your products in a new light instead of just that plain old picture on Instagram or whatnot. You know, talk about how you make your favorite recipe or stuff like that. But we're starting to see that, and I think this is a good thing in a ways of like showing how important it is now and has always been. It's just like, let's take this and move with it now. So building their community, it's a good time to build that now while we're at home, you know? Yeah, for sure.
Shari, do you want to jump in with anything there?
I do, because both of us specialize in medical sites and medical social media. And one of the things that my first thought, and I mean no offense by saying this, is start engaging with your customers. It's been that way all along. So if you're not engaging with your customers, it's not now is the time. It's always been that way. It's always been that way. And the software that's available now is certainly different than it was years ago, but you need to know your customers. And one of the things that I noticed about a few of my clients is that they're farmers. And so think flaxseed and stuff like that, things that are healthy for you. Now, this is something that people would like to know now. You know, what are some of the healthy recipes that are good for me, that are good for my family? And this is social media right now. It was perfect way to outreach. It's more important in some industries than others. What I don't want to hear from, and what people don't want to hear from, is I'm in, you know, the TV installation, television installation, you know, the art
market,
market. And what do you group of people know about the coronavirus? Not a whole heck of a lot. So please refer people to the proper medical places. You know, definitely tell your audience that you're doing what you can, your customers and your prospects, you're doing what you can to support them. But I'm not going to look for a television or cable installation company to give me information about medical. On one note, on the farmer side, I found out one of the farmer's wives is a nurse. So she is just perfect right now for the social media outreach.
I think the big thing from my perspective is that social media is very human, right? It's social. So strike genuine conversation to engage. Certainly don't adopt an authentic role, which is what we were just getting to there. If there's an authenticity, I think that will go an awful long way. And actually, my big point about that is just have a bit of tact. There's a lot of people that have been calling for marketing to just not happen during these times. I don't agree with that, but I do agree that if, particularly with bigger companies or some smaller companies that have maybe taken these courses to setting up their funnels and flows, it might not be the best time to have your automated solutions running for you, given everything that's going on in the world and what everyone's going through. So just have a bit of tact and have a bit of soul, I think, is probably the best thing that I could advise people.
So, Shari, I'm sorry, I'm going to go on to my first question, which is Charlie Worrell's question, by the way, in just a second. But you mentioned that there's new tools and stuff now out there, and Ned, I know I think you've used Buffer a fair amount in the past. I've used Sendable, and I'm currently using Zoho, and there's loads and loads of other ones out there. I've got a question though. Do you think that the tools, it seems that people like, the Twitters and the Facebooks, they kind of pulled back on their API functionalities for these tools a while back. And it seems to me that it's not as easy to get traction using the tools as it used to be. And diving in there and being actually on LinkedIn or actually on Facebook or actually on Twitter, for me, just seems to be amplifying better than when I try and send posts out through the tools. Now, I don't know if that's just me or whether that's built in by the Facebooks and the Twitters, so that they know it's coming in from these tools and they want to suppress it, or whether it's or whether it's just my imagination. Anyone got any thoughts on that? David, all right.
I was just going to say, I think you're being a bit skeptical in your years.
Conspiracy theory.
Okay. Yeah, I think they're probably wearing on you. Honestly, I don't. I think it could be a valid conspiracy theory. I don't think it would make sense. I think what's probably happening in correlation with that, as we've all been witnessing, is that organic reach is just really declining. So if it is just a very unengaging post from the outset, then it's not doing anywhere near what it used to do. And I think one of the big things that might be the discrepancy there is that when it comes to the actual media that you're attaching, if you are attaching media, which is where all the platforms have gone, it would be dependent on that. So in particular video, because I know basically all the platforms are putting video front and center. And by not including that, or maybe by posting that from a third-party tool, you're probably being in detriment to yourself. I'm old school. I use lots of different solutions, but I actually have gone back to just using the platforms themselves.
Anyone else?
Well, here in the US, there's been a lot of government pressure on, of course, on first different types of social media, some more than others. And it's unfair because I've watched these, personally on, via various channels. And it's so clear that their interns haven't done their research. So that doesn't change that they have that these platforms have a lot of pressure on them. So I'm sure some of the reaction you might be seeing is how they're reacting to the privacy concerns and fake news. So I don't think it's your imagination.
David?
Oh, well, I have I think this way. I think of when I work with I work with a lot of small businesses, and they have their own communities, they have their own following. Or sometimes they have a hard time getting traction. And I always when I work with them, I always talk about building their community and bringing it in stronger. And I always relate it to maybe that old tale, Stone Soup, where an old beggar comes into a village and he puts a rock on a fire and he starts stirring it, and people are interested, like, what's going on? What's happening? He says, I'm building a beautiful, voluptuous soup. It's the old soup, and getting that story. And so the lady comes over and she's like, well, what is it? But it would do better with an onion. And so she's like, oh, I got an onion. 1 second. She grabs an onion, brings it in, he chops it in, throws it in. Ooh, now you have that oniony smell. And then another guy passes by. And I really try and use these visuals to really strike that interest of, like, you really need to start with a story. You really need to understand, like we've been saying, is your community. And you really need to have that point where, yes, and soon enough, you've got like 10, 15, 20 people from the village bringing in all these different vegetables. And at the end of the day, you have something to feed from, and they all have something to feed from, but they all contributed to this one piece of content, or
except
multiple
you
pieces of
stone.
content. I did a stone, but it's a nice stone. It's a beautiful stone.
It's a beautiful.
You know,
I love the parable.
Yeah, I like using those kind of ideas to really strike that, and it's so important. And when you get those, when you start bringing in the community and you start bringing in, it's timeless. And yeah, if it's a mom down the road, yeah, she's going to tell her friends. And you know what? What's interesting is we're all human, and we like to say, oh, I contributed to this amazing soup. You should try this out. It's amazing. And it's all old school. It's like it's never changed. Like it's timeless, you know?
So give everybody a pite of the cherry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me get on to the first audience question, because as you know, we let people ask a question as they come in. In fact, I can't get Eventbrite to do anything but force the question. So, you know, unless people say nah or please don't, then there's questions. So I thought this was a good one to start off with. Charlie Worrell asked, what's the best way to market yourself? We all do marketing for the company we work with or for clients, but how would you go about marketing as a person or create a personal brand for yourself in social media? So maybe give your best tip, and I'll jot those down and maybe come back to those in a little bit. You know, what's your best tip for personal branding? Ned, I'll pick on you.
Yeah, go for it. So it's funny, actually. This is something that I'm constantly battling with a little bit. There's kind of a bit of a chimp paradox in there, but I think I'm going to say one controversial thing. Do it in person. Like, it's very un-social media, but social media is, like I said, social, and I think it can go a long way by being yourself and not trying to be something on social media. I know that's not massively achievable, but going to conferences,
not right now, it isn't.
Absolutely not. Yeah, that's true. Maybe be really good marketing yourself on webcams, but that's probably a different niche that we don't want to get into. But anyway, there's I genuinely, I think that goes a long way. I think in terms of just kind of tactics, video can work really, really well. I mentioned it already. It gets a huge amount of visibility, and it will outweigh any other single tweets or retweeting or any sort of engagement strategies you'll do. If your objective, and you've got to figure out what the objective is, otherwise you're just going to be kind of fruitlessly doing lots of things just to look busy. But if your objective is to kind of get your name out there, video will go a long way. You can do it, shoot it off mobile, couple of minutes opinion, if that, 90 seconds opinion on something that's prevalent, and just use that, post that across your profiles, and also just register your profiles as well. Have a presence when it comes to search or whatever it may be.
I'm going to echo that. A lot of people on social, that's the first thing I tell them to do is, even if you eventually don't use that social media outlet, protect yourself, protect your brand. So put your name out there. And if you have a company name or if you have a trademark, put that out there just to protect yourself. You will have to decide eventually on which one you want to use for the formal brand. But first and foremost, protect yourself on all the outlets. They're free, so do that. And ironically, this is how the search engine optimization industry for the web started, was a community of people who had never met each other in person, but we talked to each other via email, via discussion groups and things like that. And we eventually met each other in 1999. And the whole thing about being genuine is absolutely true. And don't be afraid of making a lower lower quality video, because people would rather have a low quality video of a genuine person than a high quality video of, you know, snake oil salesman.
100%.
Okay, David, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I think, you know, I think you, like I said before, you have to get to know your story, but you got to know people, work with people in the industry. You got to know the people that you're going to be working with. And I agree with you guys all 100%, is that you have to protect your brand, know your story, but collaborate. You know, when it comes time that you feel confident and you feel good about using, video is a great way, but you know, like we're doing right now, collaborating with people within the industry that you have a trust with, that you work well with, I think works really well. So finding neat ways, picking interesting topics, and work with those people. Choose wisely who you play with, but
yes, definitely.
Choose wisely.
So I think I'd add, Charlie, one thing, and that is, don't try and it kind of touches on what everybody else is saying, but I think when you're trying to build up a personal brand, don't spread yourself too thin. You know, Bill Gates is really good at running, was really good at running a software company, and has become incredibly good at being a philanthropist and being an ambassador for the Melinda Gates Foundation. He is rubbish when it comes to being an expert on the best pop songs, or for that matter, you know, for anything that isn't in those genres. And I think it's really important not to try and be an expert on everything, especially 100%. Right now. I mean, you know, Shari, you said, you know, if you're going to go and get information from, you know, about coronavirus, for God's sake, get it from an authoritative source. Don't listen to all of us. We're not doctors, you know, and you know, you just muddy the waters, and sooner or later, we're all going to be known for something, and you can't be known for everything, and that's sometimes difficult. So, so for example, you know, on Facebook, what I do is it's quite hard to find them, but lists still work in Facebook. So when I tweet or talk on Facebook, I have set lists so that when I'm talking about SEO, I'm only talking to all the people that I know or believe to be connecting with me because they're in my SEO group, so that my friends don't have to listen to that shit. You know, I think half the problem personally is not letting your friends hear about you when you're talking with a different story, with a different hat on. So that would be my thought there. So, okay, we just had a little message in the group there. Ned, when you talk, can you get a little bit closer to your microphone? Because
it was actually coming through my headphones, but is that better?
Oh yeah, that's better for me. So, so you know, hopefully
that's all right for Ken.
You're getting some thumbs. All right, okay. So, next question, DT, which probably is possibly a made-up name, but that's absolutely fine. How do we keep up when you've let social media pass you by? Now, I think that's actually quite a valid question for a huge number of people that were perhaps running their businesses from their shops, or were face-to-face, and they actually knew how to run their business face-to-face. But now we're in a world where face-to-face ain't that easy, and social suddenly becomes much more important. So if you're a long way behind the curve, what kind of things should we be looking at doing? How can you keep up with social media if you've let social media pass you by to this point? Shari.
I'm glad I was going first, because I have my mouth open. Insert funny image right here. I think you're never behind in social media. Social media and a lot of internet marketing, a lot of the stuff that we're doing, Dixon and I are seeing now, we've seen 20 years ago. It's just in a different form. And if you're new to it, a lot of people don't realize that what goes into social media is a lot of planning and a lot of observing. And spend your, if you're new to it, definitely preserve your brand, but look at your competition. I'm not saying it, jump off the bridge with them. I'm just saying, look at what your competition, what's working for them, what's not working for them, what are topics that they're covering and they missed the boat on something. Latch onto that, but every social media plan, we've ever worked on, there's tremendous amount, probably more work done into planning than execution. So, and you will find the social media groups your target audience uses. You know, your competition might be spinning the boat on one social media outlet, and it's another social media outlet where your target audience is really using. So don't be afraid.
David, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think, you know, catching up, I think the algorithm, Facebook, Google, the algorithm's always changing. It's always moving forward. But yeah, like Shari said, it's just like, look at your data, look at your competition, understand who they are, you know, make a plan, create a story, be creative, you know, don't just jump in there. Start looking at it in a perspective way, and just kind of see where the numbers are at, and just where your clients are truly at. You know, I think that's super important, is to really know who you are. It's never too late, even though how fast algorithms change, how things are move so quickly. You always just got to get in there at some point and move forward. But be planned, be prepared, for sure.
Yeah. I totally support that. I mean, you've got to have, well, you will have a story. But I think in terms of just not chasing the algorithm, don't worry about the geeky stuff. If you feel like you're behind the curve, let us worry about that. Like, I don't even worry about a lot of it, to be honest, because it's like, it's happening. So you just kind of ride with it. I think the two things that I'd specify, though, is use and application. So if you're wanting to use it, if you feel like you're behind it because you want to apply it to your business, just use it. So use the actual social networks. I would heavily lean towards Facebook, even Facebook over Instagram as well. It depends on your business, but I think that's kind of your Swiss Army knife that you can apply to most instances. And going to Dixon's point before, focus. Don't try and learn them all. TikTok, I don't know. I'm totally out of the demographic. I'm sure I'll have clients ask me about it. And
you mean you're too old for TikTok, Ned?
I'm just way too old for TikTok, yeah. I'm apparently the young blood, but I'm way too young.
What happened?
Same as Snapchat. So focus. But then in terms of where you can actually find good resources, I would actually probably not advise you to go to the obvious places like Social Media Examiner, John Loomer, these kind of websites, because they are the geekier end of things. I would look at the more general spaces, and actually you can do a lot worse than working through Facebook Blueprint or just seeing some of the resources they make available in their learning centers, because they'd have very mom and pop style guides. So if you're just running a small shop and you want to utilize Facebook for that, they have stuff that's more that end of the spectrum than super large multinational corporation and a global presence on social media.
So I think I'd just add, DT, that I think that the most important thing to remember for me anyway is if you're heading out there on social and you haven't been there for a while, the one thing I would say is that you can't really connect with someone. Well, you've got two ways of connecting with people. One, you can pay for it. So there's lots of the paid products and stuff, in which case go and talk to Ned or probably David, and they'll happily help you out with that. But if you're trying to do it organically, then the first thing you have to do is get them to connect to you, because else you're just talking to an empty place. And the number of people that I see still tweeting with only 4 followers, you know, their mother and their partner, and that's it.
And the cat.
You know, yeah, and the cat, and then the only other ones are bot people that have connected or whatever. You do have to first get a connection with those people, and that is definitely best done with a one-to-one conversation. So a one-to-one conversation on LinkedIn that was there anyway will end up with a connection with that person, or Twitter on a message or whatever. So, or Facebook, all of them really, if you don't get those connections, then when you do have something to say, no one's going to listen. You can only rely on one of the people that did see what you're saying, that was connected, to then retweet to a larger audience or re-Facebook to a larger audience, which is absolutely important. But unless you've got those first seed connections in there, then that's what you need to concentrate on first, I'd say, and make sure they're proper, genuine connections, really.
Exactly.
100%,
Genuine.
yo.
We're circling back to genuine. You have to be genuine, and you have to contribute.
That's not genuine. That's a Ninja Turtle, mate. That's
But it's genuine to me.
reality check.
What you talking about?
Okay, so in the early question, you guys talked about, well, Ned actually brought up video as something, and I think that's kind of interesting because in my day and Shari's day when we did start out, that is something that's a real differentiator between what we had back when we started and what's there now. So, and I'd like to think that, you know, we've kind of got the hang of it on the you know. What was the word you said I should say instead of old guard, Shari?
Classic.
Classic, on the classic side of things. The classic side of things.
Hey, classic. Wonderful.
So, but why don't you guys, you know, teach us a few things and tell us what you think. How do you go about a video strategy in social? You know, where do you start? What tools do you start with, and how do you get a message out? And I'm going to start with you, Ned. You can take your
Sure. Yeah. Tools, your mobile phone. It's got a camera on it. You can record video on it. Don't worry about quality of video or production value. Some of the biggest, like some of the biggest social presence.
Why is it all the young people have broken screens on their phones?
That's not broken.
Oh, is it not? Okay, sorry.
Baby, but it's not. No, it isn't. No.
Yeah. Sorry. Unprofessional. Ned, carry on. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Sorry, Ned.
But yeah, just that's your tool, and just do it. So I was going to say some of the biggest kind of presences out there on social.
Yeah.
Best engaged social accounts. Really do away with getting too hung up on that getting started, that cause to action thing, which is just picking up your phone and creating content. Yeah. We've talked already about authenticity, which is massive, and then also about effectively being there and doing it and having a story to that. And if you've got those things, which I should hope that you are, especially if you're a small business, you've got a story to tell, then tell it. And don't get too hung up on the rest of it. I really wouldn't worry about it. But tools, tips and tricks, use your phone, get it uploaded, test, and see what works. Yeah.
David?
Yeah, it's you gotta, you know, I know so many businesses, I gotta get the latest Canon, I gotta get all the lighting, I have to spend all this money, I have to get, you know, a studio, I have to get, you know, all this stuff before I get going. I think that's just a stall. I think you really need to just get going, feel comfortable. Even if it takes practice videos, like Ned was saying, just take you've got your phone, start playing around with it, you know, and you got a story. And if you're unsure about your story, start working on that. Yeah. Okay. Bring it up to video. Shari?
Okay. Yep. You nearly outed there, but that was fine. It's fine. It's all good now again. Yeah. Okay. Shari, do you want to add anything?
That's what I was saying. I can't quite hear you. Well, and this has been true also in terms of usability and user experience.
Yeah.
People want to know there are human beings at the other end of that website.
Yeah.
And they want to see you being human. Yes, they want to see you being the expert, but first and foremost, they want to see that you're human and
100%.
not a Ninja Turtle, contrary to other people's opinions in this episode.
How about Darth Vader? Come on.
Oh, I can take Darth Vader. But people really want to know that there's a human being at the other end, and building that trust is so critical. So in building a community and doing outreach.
Just to drop in a couple of other tools as well there. I'll pop them in the chat, but if you want to take your videoing to a slightly different level, you can get a stabilizer for your iPhone, which does the whole, it makes it look really pro, and you can walk around with it and it keeps it fixed in one place. That will leverage, I mean, they're like $100 or something, so they're really not that expensive. There's also a site called iOgrapher as well, which effectively lets you build an iPhone into pretty much a full-on camera setup. With like detachable modular like microphones and grips and stuff. And the other thing as well, with when we're going to a content perspective, there's a site called Rev. I think Craig Campbell recommended it to me, but you can take video content. If you're better off producing content by just speaking, you can take that content, get it transcribed, super useful and good for visibility because you can add it as closed captions so people can watch your video without the sound on, which like 90% of people do. They watch video with sound off on social media. So you're missing out on that massive audience. But it does it for like, I've got it up here. It's like $1 per minute's worth of transcription or something. So you could also then take that and apply that onto your website, onto your social posts, and other things if you want to, which would help benefit things there.
Okay, excellent. So I want to try and get through feedback from a previous thing is I didn't get through enough questions. So I'm going to just throw a couple of quick fire questions out there. So so we don't have to all answer each one of them, but I'll start with this one. Is there any, so Rory, are there any effective ways to engage using LinkedIn, and what are the most popular social media sites? Sorry, it's Sandra. Can you say some effective ways to engage using LinkedIn? Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. How do you engage on LinkedIn? Is it working? For me, it's working really well. I think LinkedIn is getting better and better.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm communicating better. When I post a story, a few more people are listening than before, but they're targeted. They seem to be the right kind of people. So I kind of like it, but I don't know about anyone else.
Well, they just released the video. I mean, so they're really giving props to video. I hate to bring it up again, but you see a lot of that through your feed and whatnot. But yeah, I'm impressed with LinkedIn, how organic it's working in a lot of different cases.
Oh yeah, and they're opening up live streaming on LinkedIn as well. Aren't they?
On LinkedIn, that's
right.
right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they didn't give it to me yet. I don't think. You know, I think.
What happened?
Okay,
pilot test LinkedIn, because LinkedIn doesn't work for every industry. There are some industries LinkedIn works outstandingly well for, and there are industries it doesn't. So if you pilot test, give yourself X amount of time, do X amount of work, and if you're not getting the return on investment, move on. Okay. Don't be afraid to say, this isn't the right social media outlet for my target audience.
Yeah. Okay. From a paid perspective as well, just from my experience, it's about 10x the cost of Facebook on LinkedIn. It's really expensive. So approach with caution. If you've got the same budget for Facebook and LinkedIn, just be aware that is going to be significantly more expensive. But video is your best organic strategy, in my opinion. Definitely.
Okay, so this one isn't particularly a social question, but it's in here, and I thought, yeah, Shari will love this one. So I'm going to ask it anyway. Jose, sorry, I can't see what the name is. It's Jose, I think. Jose is SEO and customer journey inside UX to grow website authority. So I guess. Can you use better UX to improve the authority of your website or web pages, Shari?
Absolutely. But it's not in the way you would expect it to. It's having a better archiving plan, because over time, your website and your social media presence should get stronger. And social media link development could also be a great byproduct of social media. And I have seen the worst archiving on the best websites. And so one of the easiest ways you can quote unquote beat your competition is, especially if you're new, have a good archiving plan from the outset, and then over time your authority will build. Actually, it'll build more quickly, and the quality will be top notch.
Okay. Okay, anyone want to jump in, or shall I carry on? We're running out of time. Okay,
Continue.
I'm going to carry on. Okay, so I want to bring in sort of a kind of good closing question. It kind of came in a couple of ways, really. Ryan Jones said, how are you preparing SEO strategies for the rest of the year? But the one I'm going to pick on was Brian Christensen, who said, given the current state of play and the world that we're in, how do you think we might want to pivot our businesses, our strategies, our approaches in the current state of the world? And how are we going to stand out? So it's maybe coming around to where we started at the start of the session, but asked in a slightly different way. What kind of pivot should we be looking at, if any, to stand out in this brave new world? Anyone want to come in with that?
Yeah, I'll go for that. It's definitely a nice kind of dovetail to what we started the conversation on. Authenticity rules. I do think the genuine pivot, I'd be concerned because I don't actually think a lot of businesses need pivot unless they should, if that makes sense. Don't pivot for the sake of it, for example. However, I do think what it is imposing on us is a far more flexible and possibly remote way of working, and being enabled to do that. It's quite shocking, some of the stories I've heard from massive companies over here in the UK that have fallen on their knees just because their employees don't even have laptops, for example. So they physically cannot work anywhere else. So I think adapting more towards that. And from a marketing perspective, I think just, as I said before, kind of tact and honesty will probably carry you a long way.
Yeah.
David, Shari?
100%. Yeah, I think authentic communication with your clientele, keep them involved, keep that communication up, you know, keep that conversation going, keep rolling and be honest, be real, you know, and I think there's a lot of, it's been hard right now. Yeah. But I think we're learning how to use technology in a way that's going to benefit us in the long run and in the future, for sure, and especially for small business. But keep that communication going. Keep that social communication. It's social media for a reason. So,
So I'll just jump in before Shari and let the classic answer to finish up. And but I'll just say one thing that I think we might want to look at is that something that's interesting. So when I'm involved in software, I'm more involved in software as a service than I am in SEO these days, or these kind of things per se, or agency side. And what I'm noticing is that around the world, we're in different layers of panic and lockdown in different parts of the world. And it's a good opportunity to start segmenting what you're doing around the world. So, for example, Wuhan is about to lift their travel restrictions. They haven't had a death in a fair few days. They're lifting their restrictions on April the 8th. And I'm hearing that the Chinese are getting back to business as normal, and moving on with life. So if you've got a worldwide market, start to target the right countries at the right times when they're in the mood to do business, not in the mood to lock down and panic. Obviously, the approach that you're going to talk about when somebody's in lockdown and in panic mode, the first couple of weeks of lockdown are very scary. But, the Italians are getting on with business now that they've kind of got into that routine. So I think that you have to bear in mind the different moods of the different nations in the world right now, and react accordingly. The other thing I'd say is long term, of course, your client base is likely to change. If you're in the travel industry, I think international travel is going to take a long time before it's even legal, really, frankly. The planes are just going to stay on the ground, majority of them. We're not all going to go to foreign countries quite as often. I probably won't get to PubCon for the first time in my life this year, because I suspect that is going to be the final barrier to stop the disease from spreading until the vaccine is out there. So, there are markets you're going to have to change, but then there's other markets that are going to build up. Other things are going to become important to people. And once we're out of the emotional start of it all, I think that those business markets will become more obvious and will present themselves, from video conferencing to online learning. Shari, I don't know, what would you like to add on there?
And we circle back to the beginning, but one of the things I wish everybody would do is find your niche and find what you're passionate about. Because if you're passionate about something, whether you try to be right, but nobody can be right 100% of the time. And if you're passionate about something, it'll come off as more genuine because you are passionate about it. And that's how I got started in SEO. That's how I got started in usability. It's how I got started in all the things that I'm interested in. And be flexible, because things will, you'll find some things are more profitable than others. And there are things that you're going to want to do just because you love doing them.
Yeah.
Okay. So just we're going to wrap up now, and I'll give you guys a chance to say where people can follow up if they want to do anything. Finally, a thank you to Majestic, who sponsored the event, of course. A couple of things that they've been working on recently. They've got a thing on their blog of how they accidentally made a discovery tool for lost backlinks, which is well worth looking at. They've also dramatically increased their historic index update time, which is good, and that's a great thing that came out today. So have a look at that. And if you haven't got the hang of link context yet, then have a look at that as well. So guys, I just want to finish up by saying, each of you, thank you very much to you, and thank you very much to the audience. So guys, how can people find you if they want to follow up with any questions online? So David?
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn, David Mackenzie-Kong, or Facebook or Instagram, David J. Kong on Instagram.
Okay, and that's Mackenzie, M-A-C, isn't it?
M-A-C, yeah, that's right.
Okay. And Ned?
Yeah, just Google me. I'm the only Ned Poulter that I'm aware of. Poulter, as in French chicken farmer. You can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, just type it in there, or the company's Polestar Digital as well. So if you want to check out our sexy new website, you can go over there too.
Okay, and Shari, how do they find you?
Best way to get a hold of me is by
buy the
books, plural. Email is the best way to reach me. My name, just Google my name, Bing my name, Facebook my name, you'll find me.
That's Shari Thurow. That's great. Okay, guys. So when I press this end meeting button, I go completely offline. So I'll drop you both all an email afterwards and say, to say thanks. But appreciate you
true pleasure, guys.
Taking up your time. Thank you very much to audience out there. Please come in next month. Oh, there's got to be a time when I just press the off button.
Oh my God.
Bye, guys. Bye. Sorry, Shari. They're just all kids. They're all kids.
What happened?